healing our children and ourselves. Did you know there are 7 key factors that you need to understand and master in order to manifest anything in your life? Well, guess what? I'm going to teach it to you. I'm creating a free training that's happening at the end of April. So if you're interested, head on over to momisincontrol.com/join. And the first key factor, I'm going to give you a little heads up right now, is getting super crystal clear on what it is that you want. Yes, I know this can be overwhelming. So guess what? When you join, head on over to momisincontrol.com/join, fill out your name and your email. I'm going to gift you my alignment PDF. This is curriculum taken from my mastery program that I'm gifting you just for registering for this free training. And during the free training that will happen at the end of April, and yes, there will be a replay, I will walk you step by step through the process, what these 7 key factors are, giving you resources and actionable practical steps that you can take today, well, not actually today, but on that day, to take back control of your time and your parenting. The secret here is once you understand how to manifest, you can transfer these skills to any area of your life. So if you're ready to finally stop just listening to the podcast, but start implementing and taking the next step, then head on over to momisincontrol.com/join. Hey ladies, I'm back. Another day, another podcast. So today I want to share with you an interview that I did with my friend and colleague, Andrea Anderson. She is the founder of I Healed My Sons. It's a book and a website. So check it out, ihealedmysons.com. So what I love about Andrea is she is a holistic health coach who had 2 boys on the spectrum. Autism, ADD, ADHD, all of that fun stuff. I don't know the official diagnosis. I know they were autistic. And Andrea claims that she has healed her sons and they are now off the spectrum. So when I first connected with Andrea years ago, probably 7 years ago, the one thing that I found fascinating about her is her persistence and her confidence to talk about this subject because it's a very touchy subject. And I am going to flat out tell you that her values and her beliefs and her opinions are not mine. So I want you to be very open that we all have our own opinions and values about how to raise children, with the health, their physical health, mental health, spiritual health. And what I see a lot out there in the health industry, in the personal development industry, is preaching that there is only one way to heal ourselves and only one way to heal our children. So I am not here today to tell you that we have found a cure for autism or ADD or ADHD. But what I am here to do today is to start a vulnerable conversation between myself and another mother. A mom on a mission to help herself and how that led her to healing more within herself. And Andrea's boys are now teenagers, and she's been on this journey since they were infants. So she almost has 2 decades behind her of diving into the holistic sector and understanding health and how the body functions and all of that. And in this interview, she even openly talks about, if she had to do it all over again, she might do things differently. So as a mother, from one mother to another, I want you to know this. You are not failing. You are doing enough. You are enough. I do not want you to step into this interview and think, these are 25 other things that I need to do. I want you to crack your mind wide open to possibility that maybe we can think and feel and become and do and breathe and find peace within ourselves. Because when you are raising a child that is perceived different and alternative and not mainstream and not the norm, You are already isolated. You are already alienated. And that is not how I want you to feel here. I do not want you to overwhelm yourself. I want you to know that this is a journey and you were gifted these children. They were brought to you in your life to help you grow. And this doesn't happen overnight. This takes time. This takes patience. This takes perseverance and dedication. And you can't do it alone. So I hope today inspires you and doesn't overwhelm you. And I really want you to start trusting your gut more and tap into that and ask yourself, do I feel called to reach out to Andrea? Do I feel called to go to her website at ihealedmysons.com and download the first 2 chapters of her book or order it on Amazon? Do you feel called? And if you don't, then let it go. So let's dive in. All right, Andrea, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. It's great to be here.
I've been waiting for this conversation for a really, really long time.
That's funny. I think I've felt it too. So, ditto.
You're a perfect mix of practicality, holistic understanding, right? Like the science behind it, but also the woo-woo and the energetics. And I find, I don't know about you, but we can't just depend on one modality these days. We have to look at the whole child, the whole brain, the whole system, all of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. You nailed it.
Awesome.
I feel the same.
So part of the reason why I wanted to talk with you and have this conversation with you is because, of course, Mom is in Control is about motherhood, and you have a really unique story. And I remember when we connected, that was probably 6 years ago now, 6-ish plus years. And your book, I Healed My Sons, I just thought was fabulous because your story, you had 2 boys on the spectrum, and you boldly say, I healed my sons. They are no longer on the autism spectrum.
Right.
So when people say that, or when you say that with confidence, and there's someone listening to this and they have a child on the spectrum, what do you say to them?
Well, I let them know it's possible. I let them know that, if they want to hear more, here's my journey. Here's how it went. And that I let them know what I found to be the causes of what had my boys in that place to begin with and what helped to shift them out. And quite honestly, for those who don't believe that it's possible, I don't go into a big story because they're closed to that option. And unless they're open, they don't really need to hear more. And I don't think that from a negative standpoint. I just can read that energy and I can feel clearly. When we make up our mind something's not possible, then that's the house we'll stay in. But yeah, anybody who's curious, who's open, who wants to know more, I just share my story. And then if they want to know more, we just keep going.
That's what I love about this is we have a choice, possibility, and it's more about the mind, right? Are we open to receiving or are we closed off? The growth mindset versus fixed mindset and all of that happens in between. So can you just take us back a little bit for people who don't know you and just tell us a little more of that story for the people who are open to receiving it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 2 sons that are now 17 and 14. But several years ago, both of my sons were on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. And to back up a little bit, they both were born as typical, what one would call, quote unquote, regular little boys. Okay. They were progressing in, again, quote unquote, because what is normal, but they were progressing in what looked like a normal fashion. And then they were impacted by different toxins. And as a result, both of them started showing signs of being on the spectrum. My older son, who of course was my only son for almost 3 years, what he had going on wasn't as clear to me. I just knew I felt really uncomfortable about something. He had a lot of energy. He would go, at times he was calm and other times he was climbing all over the place, jumping off of the washer and dryer. He was sporadically hitting out of nowhere. It was like somebody switched a light switch, and he went from being calm to freaking out and having fits and having high levels of energy. And I wasn't quite sure what the heck was going on. But I thought at the time it was me. It was me and my way of not knowing how to parent. And somehow it was my fault that I couldn't control my kid. So I kept looking for different ways to help him. Behavior modification. I went to therapists. I went to counselors. And this is my little boy who was only like 1.5, 2 years old. And I was already searching for answers to help him and to help me, because I was making us both wrong at that point in time. So, but at the same time, there was something in me that felt like there's something I could be tending to here, and I don't know what it is. So along comes my second son, and he was growing as a typical little boy. And then at about 7.5 months old, he lost all of his motor coordination. After he lost all of his motor coordination, I'll be straight up with you. It was about 2 weeks after he had a series of vaccinations. He lost all of his motor coordination. He laid there like a lump on a log. He would not look at me. I called his name. I remember one particular day when he was laying on our bathroom floor, and I was right there with him laying on the floor, and I called his name 40 plus times, and he never turned to look at me, something he would have easily done, calling his name once. So I knew something was really off. And at that point in time, brought him to our pediatrician. She wanted to rush him to the neurologist's office, because something else he was also doing around the same time would be to shake his head rapidly and roll his eyeballs to the back of his head. So, and every time he did that, I felt like I wanted to throw up. So they did an EEG, which is basically a brain scan, found that he was okay. They told me, oh, there's nothing. He's okay. He'll grow out of this, blah, 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 blah. Well, in the meanwhile, between him going to have this EEG, us waiting to get the results, something in me told me they weren't going to give me my answer, and that I would figure it out, and that I would take it from here. And that's exactly what I did. I then, having not even been in the holistic realm of living, we were very mainstream. I was just naturally drawn to holistic medicine. And I connected with our first holistic doctor, found out about shifting foods for my son, both of my sons, found out about different supplements I need to take, found out about all sorts of things. It was the beginning of my journey in the holistic realm of living. And I realized that both my sons were on the autism spectrum. And we talk about how, the universe will show us what we need when we need it. And I'll tell you just like a little side note here, but it's a fun story to tell. When I was trying to sort out what was going on with my youngest son and what did he have? What did he have? How can I help him? What's happening? As I asked that question, within 24 hours, I went to a Trader Joe's that had opened up in our area, and this woman stopped me. This elder woman stopped me. She's like, hello, my name is Frances. I used to be a Waldorf teacher. I said, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And she said, Montessori school teacher. And she said, I just wanted to say, because I was pushing my youngest son, Bowden, around in a stroller. And she said, I just wanted to say, he's so handsome. And by the way, do you know about vaccinations? I said, excuse me? And she said, just be careful of them. I have to tell you, there's things in them you want to be mindful of. And we just spoke for a couple minutes, and she went about her business. The evening before, I had dinner with my stepsister, who brought up vaccinations. She's very mainstream, knows nothing about vaccinations, but she said, I heard something about vaccinations. Just thought I'd throw that out there. And then that night, I go home and I turn on the news, 10 p.m. news, and they pretty much never do segments on vaccinations, and especially related to autism. For a lot of reasons, pharmaceutical industry basically owns the news. Somehow, a segment was on that night just for me to hear that there were several parents claiming that vaccinations caused autism in their kids. So this story isn't to be about pointing the finger. This is just to show that the universe will show you what you need to know when you need to know it. And it was so clear to me. My son has autism. My youngest son was severely autistic. I could see at that point in time once I started to learn about this. And B, he had shit in his body that I wanted to clear out, period. And then it started to make sense with my older son, what the heck was happening. And he wasn't as far along on the spectrum as my younger son, but he, at that point in time, was more like PDD, pervasive developmental disorder. It was closer to that with a touch of autism. So he wasn't severely autistic. So anyway, the whole point I'm making is the universe showed me what I needed, showed me where I needed to go to handle this. Even looking up doctors, it was like boom, boom, boom. It all just showed up for me so easily. And I was in it. I had everything about me said, doesn't matter what they have, they're clearing. And it was a decision that I didn't struggle to make. It was just, I felt it within myself and I just moved forward from that place. And when I stepped back, Heather, I realized that, it was in that decision that I kept finding my answers and I kept being in more of a flow of what I needed to do next, what I needed to do next, what I needed to do next. So anyhow, moving through, it wasn't like it took a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It was like months, years. We would
have quick fix.
Right. We moved forward. We took 10 steps forward and sometimes took several steps back. It was a fucking journey. It was good. It was crazy. It was sad. It was everything in between. And it was really, really expanding for me because I realized through this whole process, that it couldn't be just all about them, which it was for quite a while, because it was sucking the life out of me as much as I was pouring my life into them and sorting things out for them. I was struggling. So it had to be about me too. And I didn't realize to what degree it needed to be about me. And then the other part that I realized was that, oh my gosh, I spent a lifetime of feeling like I was never enough. And here were these two beautiful little boys that made me feel like I really wasn't enough. Like you bring two kids who are on the autism spectrum somewhere and everybody in the room turns away from you. Wants nothing to do with you. You're like, what the fuck? Right? So you can go home crying going, oh, poor me and poor my kids. And what's our fucking problem? And what's my problem? Or you can start to say, oh, well, this is who we are. Who would we like to hang out with? Who does it feel good to be with? Who's actually kind of okay with us? Who is really okay with us? And oh, you know what? It doesn't matter if they're not okay with us. I still have me. I still have you. We still have the trees. We still have outside. And we're going to move the fuck on. It's a whole journey. And it was a journey to starting to own my inner strength, my starting to not give a shit what other people thought and think. And then eventually it brought me to, wow, this doesn't all have to be so hard. I can actually find clearing in myself, clearing for them, peace in my life, happiness in my life by following not the thread of hard work, pushing and struggle, but following things that feel good. That took a while to get to that point, but meaning as I would find something that felt good to do, I'd allow myself to do it. And I don't mean just yoga and just a massage or just reflexology or whatever the fuck, felt good. All those things, yes to all those and beyond for sure. But even in moment to moment in my life, like starting to notice, wow, I was just really rushing or I was just tight with that thought. What can I do that would feel?
Okay, so it's a journey. Regardless, parenting in general is a journey. And then when you have children that are not deemed as good enough by society, and you have this strong internal conviction to support them and help them, this goes back to many conversations I've had with people about, where are we giving our power? Who are we giving our power to, right? And I always say, we have our relationship with our children, like it's us and them. That's a relationship. But I don't know what parenting is where people think, oh, my child just, kicked me, or they just, told a friend to go fuck off or whatever. Oh, that's my fault somehow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so much more going on. And I think as women, we need to stop taking responsibility for other people's shit. Like, I get it. Our children are highly affected by us and our energy and who we are, but they are their own spiritual beings having a human experience as well. We need to stop, remove ourselves and look and say, what does this child need? What is this child experiencing? And in your experience, you have two boys who, you know, for the sake of this conversation, we'll say they're on the spectrum, but really you knew, okay, there's something more here and they need to be cleared of toxins. So can we talk more about that and what you discovered on your journey? Because I love when you have this conversation with me, you get so jazzed about it, about heavy metals and not even knowing like this is a thing. I would never know what heavy metal testing is if I didn't go through my own health journey.
Right, right. And I just want to speak before I get into the heavy metal piece. I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's like part of this journey helped me to realize, wow, this is my kid's shit. This is not mine, just as you said. And I don't need to take this on. And they have things that they're going to need to move through. I can't make everything smoother for them. And where can I also notice that, is this really that big of a fucking deal? Like, why do I want to adhere to societal rules so much? Who wrote those fucking rules to begin with? So it just had me look around on so many levels at so many things. So I so agree with you. But stepping back into the direction that we're headed right now with the heavy metals, yeah, I realized through this journey that it was toxins, and it wasn't really just vaccinations that created this for my sons. That it was basically the vaccinations became the icing on the cake, because that was injecting a variety of things, including metals, into their bodies straight on into the bloodstream. So that was heavy duty. But in addition to that, they were carrying in them, in their livers, in their bodies, in their brains, metals from what they were exposed to once they were born, right? We used pesticides on our home. I had dental fillings when I was nursing. We painted their bedrooms before they were born with regular VOC paint, volatile organic compound paint, right? So basically chemicals, all the things that didn't make me wrong or bad. It was just unbeknownst to me. I had no clue that these things could do something to myself or my kids, right? I was just living this life of unawareness. Again, I wasn't wrong. I just was kind of living life in a different way. And once I became aware, I was thankful and started to make some shifts. So the other component here is the fact that we also carry metals from generation to generation. So some people are aware that it's toxins that created, the circumstances that their kids are in the midst of right now, and some aren't. So, but for those who are aware that it's toxins, not everybody's aware that we carry past generational metals forward. So anything our parents and their parents and their parents were exposed to, we are carrying forward. So
can you explain how that happens?
Yeah, it's just carried. It's housed on the DNA. It's housed in the body. You wouldn't think it, but livers carry it, and even brains carry it. Our organs. It's just passed on. So we spoke about this before, and to kind of go into the, for everyone to hear. If you think about, especially here in the States, but it happened all over the world, close to the same time frame. Back in the 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution came about. That's when they started mining the earth and using different resources from the earth that had never been used before for manufacturing, for creating items, for distribution, we started to have steamboats. We started to have more industry. Things were being used that hadn't been used. So we had more pollutants in the environment. And we also had our medical community here in the States, and again, eventually in other countries as well, that were prescribing, especially in Europe as well, were prescribing Mercury Elixirs to patients for any ailment. So no matter what you went to the doctors for back in the 1800s, if you had a headache, no matter what you had, they'd say, here, drink this cup of mercury. And so that started to have a huge ill effect on people. So we're carrying that stuff forward. So can I give you the details of how precisely it's carried forward? No, I'll be straight up. What I know is that it is carried forward. And what I do know is that it can also be removed from the body in the here and now. So we can remove from our body and our kids' bodies what is in our current organs. And we can also remove metals from yesteryear, these past metals.
Is that like through epigenetics and stuff, or is that something different? Do you know?
Yeah, that's something different. And that's something that I paid attention to for a bit. But this is not about genetics. This is just about toxins, straight up toxins. We can start to get confused when we start to look at, well, this genetic, like when we start to break it down into, well, do I carry this gene for this and this gene for that? It's really all conditions that we have going on right now, whether it's ADD, ADHD, autism, whether it's anxiety, depression, or it's MS, or it's cancer, or it's, you name it. Any illness that you can think of that's impacted the body or the brain, it starts with toxins. It starts with toxins and then usually another microorganism, some other organism feeding on that toxin, because that's what they do. And then the two together create a toxic cocktail within our bodies. And when there's metals, there tends to be other microorganisms that feed on the metals, but also are there because the immune system's already compromised. So they can live in there, right? In the bodies. So the main part is if you can just start to clear the toxins, the microorganisms no longer have the food to consume and they start to die off and you're clearing the toxins. So it's not like we have to address 25 things. We can just get in there and start clearing. And you can do this through food and you can do this through supplements. Back when I started to clear my sons, I did it through food and I also did it through a chelation lotions and supplements. And there was a synthetic, we use some synthetics too. And what I mean by that is it was through a holistic doctor who brought in some chelation, which is removing metals from the body system. Like we did pills. What else did we do? Suppositories. And at the time, it felt right. To think about doing it now, it doesn't feel right. It's not because it was wrong at the time. I felt like we needed to do something and I needed and wanted the metals out. So we did that. However, after we did it for a few months, I knew I needed to stop. We were removing everything from their body, all the good and all the nutrients and all the everything, right? Like it was all coming out. And then they were having lots of die-off reactions. It was heavy duty on their bodies. And I saw that, okay, I think we got enough out for now. And that's where we stayed for a long time, Heather. Both the boys were doing much better, but I knew there was a bit more to go, but I didn't need to go in anymore, go after it. My intuition was saying pause, and it became a several-year pause because they're both doing phenomenally well, but I knew there was more in there. And right now, my oldest son, he's cleared of everything. My 17-year-old son, he's cleared. My younger son is cleared of everything, and he has, when it comes to academics, he goes and he gets some support with certain things for school. So he's cleared phenomenally too, but I know that there's a bit more for him. Now, we had I'll call it a 5-year pause of not chelating of any way, shape, or form. And I knew at some point in time, a better way would come up, some way that I resonated with to fully clear all the metals, right? And that's when I came across, a couple years ago, I came across Anthony William. He's a medical medium. And
oh, yeah. Okay.
His protocol is spot on. Everything in my body resonates. Everything, when I first read it, it was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I knew I needed at some point. And here it is. It's food, it's supplements, it's specific, powerful metal clearing foods that not only help the metals to bind to these foods and pull them out of the body, but they now replenish the body with nutrients. So you're not depleting the body. You're adding to the body, and some of these foods even get in there and repair the places in the brain and the liver that have been impacted by the metals. Those are two things that a synthetic can't do. They don't deliver nutrients. They don't deliver nutrients. They only pull it all out. And they don't repair. They just pull out metals. And sometimes what I found with my boys is as we pulled out metals, there were parts of them that seemed better and other parts that didn't, because sometimes not all the metals were exiting. They were redistributing. So did I do anything wrong by doing it that way? Fuck no. It was really, really, really helpful. And anybody who feels like they need or want to go that route, kudos. That's what your intuition is saying to do. But all these years later, or however, these years later, I now have this other way. And this other way is higher vibration. For me, it's easier. It's more of a flow, and it's in tune with who they are, who I am, who we are as humans, because it only delivers goodness and takes out what we don't need.
So can you explain this a little bit more for people who are like, what the heck are you talking about? Right? Because it's one part of the brain when you're like, okay, I get food. We all know that we need to eat our vegetables and whatever, blueberries and all of this stuff. They get that part, right? I think the wellness industry has shoved that down our throat.
Yeah.
So then I find in the not even personal development, in the wellness industry, it was like food. And then people are like, oh, I'm actually not healing just by food.
Yeah.
And so now we're getting into this, like you said, the medical medium and vibration and energy. So what does this mean?
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not that he talks about energy and vibration so much. That's something that I add there. He does touch on that, but what he gets into straight up with you, Heather, is, and I follow his protocol for myself and clients because I know it to be so high vibration. And when you're talking about food with him, when you're talking about his protocols, I need to add that he receives information directly from source. So when you read it, if you yourself are aligned, you can feel the truth of that. You can feel that this is like beyond where science is right now by 40, 50, sometimes well beyond that plus years. So the deal is when we talk about food, to go back to that, not talking about just eating your greens or just drinking your lemon water or all these other wonderful things. It's focusing specifically on what's going on in your kid's body or your body, and then focusing on the specific foods that draw metals out. So I could eat kale till the cows come home, but if I'm not putting in barley grass juice extract and spirulina and specific foods that I know draw out metals, I'm still kind of circling around. I'm helping my body. I'm alkalizing it, like bringing it more into neutral. It's a little bit less reactive, but I'm not getting all the shit out. So it's about knowing the specific foods that will do this on a daily basis. It's about consistently bringing them in and then bringing in a supplement protocol that supports this process and supports the organs and delivers nutrients. So you're right. Food. On the surface, it does nice things, but if you're not eating the specific foods that make the difference and draw out the metals, you're just kind of circling around. You are helping yourself, and that's awesome, but not in the way where you're getting at the core of it.
And where do you find information about him? Do you just read his books? Did you work with him personally, or do you find this information online?
Yeah. Well, for me, I have not worked with him personally, but I have just through reading his books, through reading information online, just straight up that way. And I've worked with heaps of doctors over the years, holistic doctors and different holistic practitioners and so forth. And they're all awesome. And they all had pieces of what I needed, or most of them had something that I needed. Some had more than others. And they were all just right for where I was at. But when I knew I wanted the overview, I wanted to see the whole thing, and I wanted to know what else there was for myself and my sons, right? And this came up. And you know when you find the right thing, and you know when it's just high level. I've gotten to a point where sometimes I don't just go to people for answers, I go to source.
Right.
And this is all source driven. And the more you read his information, he has an assortment of books out. And the more you read his information, the more you're like, holy fuck, this is it. This is it. I mean, just as a side note, this guy has like top surgeons going to him when they can't resolve something, because he can see what's going on inside everyone's body, and he has a remedy for what you need to do naturally to support it. It's just like this.
Mm-hmm.
So when when you read his information or you listen to any of his downloads or whatever have you, you know it. You just know it. And then by utilizing his information and just watching, it's like, yeah. I go to my naturopath now, not too often. And when I do, I sometimes feel like I go in and say, okay, here's what we're doing. And here's what I want you to test, applied kinesiology, test myself or my sons on, because this is what I think we need next. And then now I've gotten to a point where I'm like, I don't really need to go to the naturopath because I know this is the way. Mm-hmm. And that's not just me having that gift. We all have that. It's mm-hmm. just becoming confident in ourselves with it, right? I know you know that well. So a lot of reading, a lot of resonating, a lot of just feeling, this is it. So I can tell you, I don't know if you want me to get into it right now, but I could tell you 5 key foods to bring in that help to remove metals.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about those, and then also just maybe a starter book. So if people are like, oh, where can I start to learn about the medical medium?
Yeah. So wild blueberries. If you like blueberries, this is an awesome one, but specifically wild blueberries. And you want to bring in at least 1 cup a day of wild blueberries. What we do is we can do smoothies, or we will do pour a cup of frozen wild blueberries in a bowl and just eat them. I eat them before bed a lot of times. So wild blueberries and cilantro, a cup of cilantro. I'm going to tell you these 5 foods, and I'm also going to say as a caveat, your kids and you don't have to get all 5 of these in your body every single day. You just want to try to have at least 2 of them every day to be consistently removing metals. And then on the days you can get more in, you're just golden. Okay. So cup of wild blueberries, a cup of cilantro, 1 to 2 teaspoons of barley grass juice powder or barley grass juice extract. It comes in powder form. Okay. 1 to 2 teaspoons of spirulina. That's basically an algae from Hawaii. You want to get Hawaiian spirulina. And then Atlantic dulse. That's a seaweed. Specifically Atlantic dulse. And you can get it in like a ground up form, kind of like, so you could sprinkle it on your salad, put it on top of soup, put it in a smoothie. And each of these foods are powerhouses when it comes to removing metals from the body. Okay. And when you use 2 of them or more together, they work synergistically and they aid each other in doing the job. Okay. The Atlantic dulse is phenomenal. All seaweed is awesome for us, delivers like all kinds of nutrients, but also binds to metals. Atlantic dulse tends to be one of the highest quality. And, you might think about, because I think about some of these things, seaweed is out in the ocean. There's all kinds of stuff that's in the ocean. And you think, okay, well, what about the seaweed taking on some of the contaminants that are out there? And actually what happens is no matter what it takes on, it neutralizes it. And then when you ingest it, when you eat that seaweed, it stays in a neutral state. It doesn't release it into your body. So no matter what it has, it only absorbs more, like from your body or from whatever other body it's in. It absorbs more of the metals, more of the toxins, and then just removes them out of the body. So there's no releasing. It's not like if you ate animal protein that was non-organic, non-vegetarian fed, that had crap in it, that had pesticides and so forth. And and its food and antibiotics, you would then take that on into the body. Not the case with Atlantic dose and these other foods. Again, all of them together remove awesome metals from yesteryear, even in the body, from the brain. There's so much I feel like I could explain, but I'll let you ask any other questions that you have.
Well, yeah, because it's fascinating, right? And
Yeah,
think about, for whatever reason, we still have like mainstream consciousness, which is not headed. Well, I think it's headed in this direction, slowly and surely. And that's why I love podcasting and meeting people like you, because we just have those conversations, and there's no good or bad. Like you said, it's just what resonates, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. What intro book do you suggest for them? Medical meeting.
The first book that he wrote, what I consider to be a great intro, because it's a lot of information, but it's called The Medical Medium. The Medical Medium. And the beginning of this book, there's a good chance that not everybody's going to read the whole book, because there's a lot of science, there's a lot of info. But here's what I suggest. If you want to understand what medium is, read the beginning, because it tells you his story. And in listening to his story, what happens is energetically, you get to know this person, you get to trust this person, and you form a vibration of, he's fucking got it going on beyond anyone I possibly know. It's just in there, in the energy of the story and in the truth of the story. So there's that. But once you get past his story, you can, I would say, then read the next initial chapter that tells you about what's going on in the world. Okay. Like his overview of what's happening. And then whatever you have going on with yourself or your kid or kids, look for that ailment, if you will. So for instance, if your kid has anxiety or your kid has ADHD or you have depression or whatever, go to the chapter that covers that. Look for what it says, read about it, and there's your protocol right there for you from a supplement standpoint. If you have already read about him and you resonate with him, you will then follow that protocol and see the difference. Not only because you resonate with him, but there's that trust that's built. There's that energetic, this is it. And you'll feel it too. When you're aligned, you'll feel the energy of this. So does that all make sense to you, Heather?
Oh yeah. And it just brought up a bigger conversation, and I'm sure we'll wrap this up. I mean, you and I could talk about this for hours and hours. And I could have a whole year-long series, like interviewing mother after mother, parent after parent, and healthcare practitioner, and everyone, based on the same topic, everyone will say something different. And this, there'll be some similarities, but I think this is the truth of everything. We are all designed differently. And this human experience within ourselves and our children is extremely unique and sacred. And somewhere along the way, we were taught and told that somebody knows better than we do. And I was speaking to someone, actually it was my friend, Niviana. You met her when you were here for the one-day event. And she was talking about food. And we were talking about intuition and intuitive eating, and why, I have no idea. There's a difference between, we need to ask for help.
Yeah.
Right? Like you would not be where you are today without asking for help. But one thing that you didn't do was give away your power. And too often we're seeking advice from other people and saying, they told me to do this, therefore that is the only one right way.
Yeah.
And I try to drill into women, like, I actually do not have all the answers for you. I cannot be everything for you. you might ask me, hey, I'm struggling with this or I'm challenged with this, and I can connect you and point you in the right direction with someone else that I feel like you might resonate with.
Mhm.
But it's like, how does this land for you? What do you need, right? Everyone's saying, I want a blueprint. I want a blueprint.
Mm.
There's no fucking blueprints. You have to create your own blueprint. You take everybody else's blueprints and templates and say, what part of this resonates with me?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing you say from the bigger picture of ultimately how you got your sons off of the spectrum, which is, it's, your conviction to actually say that is mind blowing. Because a lot of people don't have the confidence to say that. And yet, you're like, well, it didn't happen overnight. Like, I've been at this for over a decade, and like health with anything else, it's not a one and done. You don't just get cancer, do chemo, and you're done. And if you are, shit, you got to pay attention because your life is, and you don't even have to do that. That's a whole nother conversation. But, we need to start waking up, like waking the fuck up and paying attention and taking radical responsibility for how we're showing up. Like, oh, why do I feel like shit? Well, let's look at your diet. Let's look at your movement. When's the last time you looked at a tree? When's the last time you enjoyed doing something for yourself? How, what's the conversation you have in your head with yourself? There's so many aspects to this, to this story.
Right. Exactly. I agree wholeheartedly. It's all about following your intuition. And when you resonate with something, or when you have the desire for something, or when you feel lighter versus heavier, all of those are some of the ways that intuition shows us what's right for us, what's right for our kids. We follow that. And with our kids, we don't even always get a full sense after a while because they're growing up and they're becoming who they are, right? So they'll need to keep learning how to follow their intuition, which is a whole nother topic. But bringing it back to us right now, I know for me that I resonate so strongly and so clearly with the medical medium that for me, this is the protocol. Right now, this is the protocol. And like you said, just because my sons are cleared from autism doesn't mean we now say, okay, we're all set. We never have to do anything again. We live in a world where we're exposed to all sorts of different things. Like, for instance, my 14-year-old son is eating shit now. He goes off with his friends walking after school. He chews gum with chemicals in it, right? Sounds like, oh, what's the big deal? Typical gum. And he eats all kinds of stuff. Well, I'm watching as he's getting pimples and rashes and stuff is happening. And I'm like, ooh, but I also know this is his journey. And he just came to me last night and said, what's going on, Mom? What's going on? And I said, well, it's the liver. And I started to explain to him, and he only half wanted to hear. So when he wants to hear more, I'm there for him. I won't kid you. I at times go, holy fuck, I just want to help him right now. I just want to have him do this, and that. But I do know he eats clean at home. I know that he takes these supplements. I know that we're kicking back into full-fledged smoothies again. I know that it can be simple, and that there's parts that were already all over. So for him to want more for himself, it's right there. But we sometimes create contrast for ourselves before we reach for some expansion, right? That happens.
I really enjoy how you just said that, right? Because too many parents that I know are parenting, and I'm sure you've had your deal with this because we all do this. Parent from a place of fear. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you got to eat these, you got to take these supplements, you got to eat this food. And, the second your child goes to a birthday party and has, red dye number 5 or whatever the fuck it is, and all these hot dogs, and we have to allow them to have their independence or they're just going to rebel. But it's so beautiful when you're like, hey, when you're open, it's here for you. And, we can do the best that we possibly can, but we're not always going to be there to wipe their ass.
Yeah, no, we're not. And I don't want to be there to wipe his ass, either one of them, right? Like, and it is, this is our letting go. It's like, here's what I would love for my kids, but who the fuck am I to, like, I just have to keep aligning myself and living more and more unconditionally, meaning no matter what's going on for them and other people in my life, if I can show up feeling good, I've already got it. That's winning the lottery. And they get to see that. And they sometimes mirror that and sometimes they don't. But yeah, it's tricky as a mom because we want the best for our kids. That's how I started on this journey.
Yeah.
And I've seen the best for them many times along the way, and I haven't. But I also know I can't. I don't like to use the word fix, but I can't fix things. I can't change things. I can only align myself, listen, follow, and feel good. And from that, they can do that if they choose.
I love this. Yes, I'm there too. And that feels so much easier when you're like, hey, oh, this is the problem. Like, I'm listening, right? I'll be a listening ear.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have a choice. And it's really hard to tell a teenager, you got to be consistent with healthy eating when all of their friends are doing the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And sometimes, and I know we need to wrap up, but I'll just say sometimes when we're saying to our kids, oh my gosh, like this would help you, or not even, oh my gosh, but this could help you, that could help you. It's like checking in. Am I telling them this from a place of fear? Like, I see that this might not go well, or it's not going well, and I need more for you, right? Because that thread, that energetic thread is felt by us and into them. And they want nothing to do with that fucking advice. But when we're clear that here's an option, take it or not, and we're very clear and we're not attached to the outcome, they feel that differently. And it now becomes a true choice for them.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. So what are you up to these days? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So I am coaching clients, specifically moms who have kids with anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, and autism. And I'm helping moms to start to clear their kids' symptoms and to start to help themselves feel better, to basically just create more ease in their life and help their kids start to step into more of the space of living their potential. And I do that through a restore method, and that I won't get into now. But so that's what I'm up to, and I can be found at ihealedmysons.com. ihealedmysons.com. And if anybody's interested, they can go for, they can get the first 2 chapters of my book, I Healed My Sons of Autism, and you can too. You can get a freebie on that, a free first 2 chapters download if you go to my website and then click on the free book link.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love this. Thank you, Andrea. It is always a pleasure speaking with you, and you are a wealth of knowledge. That's what happens when you have been on this parenting journey for almost 2 decades, where it's like you're just chronically trying to figure our shit out, and then we can share that with the world.
That's exactly. Oh, that's awesome. No, Heather, thank you. This was great. I love connecting with you. I love sharing. I love your questions. The energy of it's great. So thank you for this experience. I appreciate it. I love you too, babe.
Yeah. Big Life Journal. Have you heard of them? Are you secretly hoping your children do as you say and not as you do? Well, guess what? I've teamed up with Big Life Journal to help you give your children the tools and strategies that they need to live their big life. Their growth mindset journals empower children to face their challenges head on, think positive, and embrace mistakes. You can also check out their printables and activity cards. It doesn't matter if your child is a toddler or entering high school. Discovering how to live in a growth mindset is a lifelong skill we can all learn more about. To check them out, go to momisincontrol.com/big life and let them know I sent you.